Come on. Good morning.
Hello?
Hello?
What's
Testing.
happening?
Not on.
I got it, Jay.
Good morning. I hereby call to order the September 18th, 2025 public hearing of the City of Prescott Board of Adjustments. Please answer with present as I call your name. Rick Kimmery,
Present.
Mary Fredrickson,
Here?
Miriam Hobrick,
Here.
Mark Hoekness,
Here.
and myself, Tony Teeters, here. I'd like to also welcome our newly elected mayor, Kathy Rusing. Welcome. This is an open public hearing and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of board members present is 5. It will require 4 votes for a majority. Members of the public are required to state their name for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. And please turn off all your phones, electronic devices. Okay, I'd like to pledge allegiance. Mary, would you lead us, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
According to the agenda, we would go into the item that we're looking at today, but we're going to skip ahead and approve the Board of Adjustment meetings from the August 21st meeting. Do I have a recommendation?
Mr. Chair, Mark Hoekness here. I move to approve the minutes as submitted by staff.
Is there a second?
Rick
Miriam.
Kimmery seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vote 5-0. We were going to have an executive session for a few minutes, so I need to have the board's vote to approve that meeting going forward. So all in favor of the executive session signify by aye.
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 Those opposed? Carries 5-0. So we will break for a few minutes for an executive session, and then we will be right back. Thank you. Who's doing our presentation? Oh.
Are you all ready? Yep. Okay, super. Well, good morning. My name is Alex Bramlett. I'm the planning manager with the Planning and Zoning Division here with Community Development. And we're here this morning to review an appeal that was received on July 24th from Miss Veronica Grace. The appeal was submitted against an interpretation from the Community Development Director regarding the applicability of the Land Development Code, or LDC, for Section 6.8 that regulates hillside development standards. And I apologize in advance. There's not a way to explain code without a lot of text, so we're going to run through it all. So the LDC Section 9.17 regulates appeals of administrative decisions and allows any person aggrieved by the final administrative decision of the Community Development Director to appeal to the Board of Adjustments. And so the board shall hear the appeal in a public hearing. Consideration is limited to the specific interpretation of the director. After the hearing, the board shall vote to reverse, affirm wholly or partly, or modify the appealed interpretation. The board may then provide direction for the appropriate action on the final interpretation. And in any case, the board shall only present findings regarding specific errors made on the director's interpretation. So Article 6, Section 6.1 is the applicability. This is for just the general development standards. And the general development standards of this article shall be applicable to all site development and subdivisions in the city, except as otherwise specified herein. So no building permits, C of O, site disturbance and grading permit shall be approved until all the applicable standards of the general site development standards have been met. And Section 6.8 of the LDC provides the more specific exceptions that govern hillside development standards. So Section 6.8.2 is the applicability. And it states that the regulations of this section shall apply unless otherwise addressed or specified herein. Notwithstanding these provisions, the City Council has full discretion in which to waive or modify the hillside development standards to all proposed residential land splits and subdivisions with slopes areas greater than 20% or otherwise specified herein. Where the standards of this section are in conflict with other provisions of the code, the more restriction provisions apply. The applicability section is more restricted by referencing hillside land splits and subdivisions and does not apply to single site development. Moving on to Section 6.8.3 is the residential density allocation and maximum site disturbance. And it states for all areas of the lot or parcel with less than 20% slope, 100% of the site disturbance may occur where densities are being transferred from higher slope areas. Development projects proposing such density transfers shall be subject to the Planned Area Development or PAD requirements of Section 9.5. For slope areas greater or steeper than 20%, the standards of this section apply. And then it goes on further in 6.8.3, A through D, which I'll cover in a moment, to continually reference preliminary plat, PAD subdivision, final plat, and hillside subdivisions. So here's just a screenshot of our LDC going over Section A and B from 6.8.3. And I'm not going to read it all thoroughly, but it's going over the maximum site disturbance components and the grading for projects, the disturbable areas, including anything that's approved with the grading. And it's all indicated on the building envelopes when I've highlighted preliminary plat, again, focusing on all of this is applicable and in the realm of a preliminary plat or a subdivision. Article Section 6.8.3b goes over the encroachment and sloped areas that may be approved by City Council for PAD subdivisions using a density transfer. And we're doing so helps achieve efficient subdivision. Again, all kind of relating to subdivision process. This is continuing on Section C, where it goes over remediation of resulting disturbed ground shall be required on the final plat. subdivision process. And for noted on the relatable disturbance area in the envelopes, subdivisions approved for this additional site disturbance may only be gain increased by what is approved at, again, final plat. And D goes over for approved hillside subdivision. So again, just further emphasizing this is all related to preliminary plats, final plat subdivision, and not single site development. Continuing on, section 683E is a table that you can see for the density and maximum site disturbance shall be determined in accordance with the following. And so kind of generally, I mean, the goal for the hillsides, it has on the left-hand side the different slope categories, and then it goes over the maximum disturbable areas. The goal is to not disturb more of the hillsides. We want development to be in the 20% or less sloped areas. So this is the goal. And it's indicating that if you have larger sloped areas, we want you to have larger lots to allow for more room to actually build not in those steep slopes. And once, so this is the general overview of the table. The next section is F, which is a table interpretation. And F1 goes over specifics for non-PAD preliminary plats, again, a subdivision process. And number 2 under F is for PAD preliminary plats. So just making the distinction between if you have a planned area development or if you don't. Section 684. This is a little preamble, but subject to council's sole discretion and the PAD requirements, residential density and site disturbance may be transferred from portions of a lot or a parcel with a slope of greater than 20% to an area of less than 20% slope. Areas from which density and site disturbance are transferred shall be designated as natural areas, and density and site disturbance shall be transferred only on site within the boundaries of the subject tract or parcel. So again, we're trying to, with a PAD, which is where these development criteria kick in, is to make it so you can density transfer. So we're removing density ideally from the hillside components and then shifting it towards the areas that are less than 20%. And that is done through a PAD process. And lastly, we have 6.8.5, which is exception to hillside development standards. And the exceptions or to otherwise required hillside standards, including but not limited to the maximum site disturbance, clustering, and the provisions outlined in the hillside residential density relating to minimum lot area, minimum disturbable area, and density transfers, again, as we talked about, referring to preliminary plots or PADs. They may be modified and approved by council. Preliminary plots, PADs, subdivisions go through our city council process. If the provisions of this section are in conflict with provisions found in the city's planned area development or subdivision provisions, the provisions herein shall control. And so lastly, I just want to conclude, it is staff's position that the hillside development standards outlined in Article 6, Section 6.8, specifically and continually reference preliminary plat, PAD subdivisions, final plats, and hillside subdivisions, and is not applicable to single site development. I'd further like to throw out that they still have to go through permitting process, and they have to comply with setbacks, zoning, they need to comply with building code, they need to comply with engineering standards, all that's still done. It's just specifically our hillside development standards don't apply in staff's opinion. And so therefore staff is recommending a motion to affirm the community development director's interpretation of the LDC relating to the hillside development standards. I know the appellant, Ms. Veronica Grace, is here, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Mary Frederickson, not at the moment, although I'd like to hear from the appellant, get input from their side.
Okay.
If they have any input they'd like to
If
share.
you'd like to come up to the microphone, please.
Good morning. First, I'll say thank you for your commitment to Prescott and the time that you devote to this. I have appealed this with respect to the project at 500 South Marina Street, but this is much bigger than just 500 South Marina Street. This is the entirety of Prescott, in that we are applying or lacking to apply our hillside development standards. And I want to just zoom out for a moment from Alex's presentation and just think about what this really means to the city of Prescott. We have hills all around us. It's not just about not being able to build on the hills. It's actually about chopping the hills down. It is basically, without these standards, saying we can just cut hillsides down. I believe, my attorney believes, even my best friend ChatGPT believes, this is very clear, applicability. In section 6.1, the wording is very explicit, except as otherwise specified in herein. You can Google this, you can ask any attorney. It means there have to be explicit exceptions called out in the code, which we do not call out in our code. We call out lots of other examples of where it applies and has more specificity, especially the planned urban developments, for example, and the subdivisions. But there are no exceptions that are actually called out. Section 6.8.2 applicability also says similar language, unless otherwise addressed or specified herein. We do not provide any exceptions in our code. We do not say this only applies to subdivisions, this only applies to planned urban developments. This does not apply to X or Y or Z. We do not have that language in our code. Even if you believe that applicability is ambiguous, as our planning and development team did, Ms. Walton shared with me that they found this somewhat ambiguous and consulted legal advice. In that case, the intent must govern. This is proven through Arizona revised statutes, through decades of case law. We must look at the intent of the code. So ask yourselves, is the intent of our hillside development standards that we protect our hillsides only in some cases? But in other cases, it's fine. In some cases, we are restrictive about what amount of disturbable grade there is, but in other cases, it doesn't matter. The intent of our code is to protect our hillsides. And I would love to point you to section 6.8.1, the purpose of our hillside development standards. It's quite beautiful. Prescott's hills and mesas are valuable scenic resources that should be considered for preservation to the maximum extent possible, while allowing for the development and beneficial use of private property located in and around the hills and mesas. Dominant scenic ridges and mesas should be identified and developed with the goal of maintaining the city's unique visual setting, promoting its economic well-being, encouraging tourism and quality living, regulating the intensity of development according to the natural characteristics of the hillside terrain, such as degree of slope, significant landforms, and slope stability and existing drainage patterns, allows for development in hillside areas while minimizing the physical impacts of such development. The authors of our legislation were not trying to selectively protect our hillsides. They were trying to protect our hillsides. And our courts, and you as surrogates for a court, are obligated to protect according to intent of our legislation. I believe the intent is very clear. It's not pick and choose. It is protect our hillsides. There are no exceptions referenced in our code. True, there's a lot of detail about subdivisions, a lot of detail about planned urban area developments, but there are no exceptions called out. I will finish here with saying thank you again for your time and your commitment to Prescott. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
This is Mary Frederickson. I don't have any questions, although I will. Thank you for your presentation. I'll just point out, and I don't mean to just parrot what the appellant just indicated, but for my purposes in reviewing the LDC, I do focus in on the purpose, which is the very first section, 6.8.1, as indicating the intent, which is what we should be looking at when there is some ambiguity in the code. And the intent, as the appellant points out, is to protect the asset that we have, which is our hills and space that is not carved up and built over. not that building homes or apartments or anything else is a negative by and of itself. But if we don't have codes that we stick to, then we're in deep doo. So yes, under purpose, the intent of this section of the code is to protect our assets in this regard, and it's specifically under the next section 682, talking about applicability as the appellate just laid out, except where specified. And there is a lot of language in this section about pads or subdivision, because there are specific things that need to be addressed in those circumstances. To the extent that there is any exception to be found for single lot development, I've reviewed this section of code and I find no specific exceptions involved. And in fact, I just lost my place. There is a section 685 that specifically says exceptions to hillside development standards. And in that paragraph, there is no mention of except for single lot development. And if the intent of the people writing this code wanted to accept single lot development from the requirements of this code, there's the paragraph where they would say, except for single lot development. There is nothing specified, and the fact that there is a lot of language in here about pads or subdivision, again, is specific to those circumstances, but does not indicate, to my review of the code, an intent, a specific intent to accept away single lot development. So no question, but just my thoughts.
Thank you, Mary. Who's up next?
Alvin Burke.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in with my thoughts before the public comment was completed. Sorry.
Good morning. My name is Alvin Burke. I reside in Wilderness Point in Prescott, Arizona. I'm neither an engineer nor a lawyer, but have questions that arise over the issue as it pertains to both Prescott Land Development Code 9.17 and Section 6.8 Hillside Development Standards, and as they apply to the proposed apartment development at 500 South Marina. My concern is the planned total destruction of the hillside slope on the southern end of Marina. Ms. Grace, a neighbor, has addressed both the engineering as well as the legal issues in depth. On March 4th, 2025, Ms. Walden stated that the community development team believes that 6.8 of the code is ambiguous and is targeted for future wording changes to clarify. Ms. Walton stated that lawmaker intent must govern. What intent? What is their intent? Where is their intent clarified? On what document? On July 4th, 2025, Ms. Walton stated that her interpretation is that Section 6.8 Hillside Development Standards do not apply to the property at 500 South Marina, only to multi-lot subdivision projects. On what basis is that interpretation made? And where is it officially noted? And what lawmaking body approved it? This fly by the seat of your pants governing is unacceptable and deplorable. Over the years, I have seen both residential and commercial reduction of hillsides and mesas with apparently no discrimination. There is an apartment project off Montezuma that over the months has flattened a huge mesa that could be seen for miles. Is that a multi-lot subdivision or is it an apartment complex? The intent of 6.81 is quote, Prescott's hills and mesas are valuable scenic resources, and I won't repeat what's already been stated. I contend that the hillside at the south end of Marina is a valuable scenic resource with wildlife trails and total illumination for the sole purpose of satisfying a developer who wants an apartment parking complex is unacceptable and unconscionable. I encourage the board to apply the code as intended to 500 South Marina, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Matt Verrier. Marty Verrier.
That's okay. Everybody doesn't know how to say my name. Good morning. My name is Marty Verrier, and I reside on Wilderness Point, just above the new proposed apartment complex on 500 South Marina. In addition to what Ms. Grace and Mr. Burke has stated, I would just like to make certain points that I think really need to be considered with the code and how it impacts the project. It's a preservation of natural resources, and the steep slopes and hilly terrain often contain delicate ecosystems, including native vegetation and wildlife habitats. Section 6.8 aims to limit the disturbance of these natural areas, ensuring that development does not lead to habitat loss or soil erosion. By preserving these ecosystems, we maintain the environmental integrity of the area. Hillside areas are prone to water runoff and erosion, which can lead to flooding or damage to infrastructure. By implementing strict development guidelines, Section 6.8 ensures that development plans incorporate both proper drainage systems to manage water flow, reducing risks of erosion and preserving the quality of nearby resources. There's also the question of safety and stability. Hillsides are particularly vulnerable to landslides or subsidence. Section 6.8 provides guidelines that require thorough geological studies, ensuring the stability of the land. This minimizes the risk of landslides or foundation damage in the future, thereby protecting surrounding homes and communities. Hillside developments often present challenges in terms of emergency, specifically vehicle access, and especially in the event of natural disasters like wildfires or floods. And the marina project dead ends into it's a very narrow street, and with a number of residents that they are proposing, 106. If there was a wildfire and any other type of emergency, and vehicles had to come in and out, it would be very, very difficult, and it could even block the ability of the residents that live on the south side, on the south side to exit. So there's a question of ingress and egress. Again, I'm going to reiterate, Prescott is known for its stunning vistas, and hillside developments can drastically impact the aesthetic value of the area if not carefully controlled. Section 6.8 encourages architectural designs that blends with the natural landscape, maintaining visual harmony and preserving scenic views for residents and visitors alike. By regulating the height, footprint, and style of buildings, Section 6.8 ensures that development maintains the character and charm of Prescott's hillside, neighborhoods, and residences. Strict guidelines can prevent unsightly development that clash with the surrounding natural beauty, enhancing both the livability and market value of the area. Developing on steep slopes requires thoughtful planning regarding building materials, structural integrity, and utility infrastructure. Section 6.8 mandates that all new development projects meet high construction standards to ensure buildings are durable and can withstand the unique stresses of a hillside environment. Strict development guidelines not only help with aesthetics and safety, but also protect long-term property values, and this could adversely impact the value of surrounding property. Well-designed, sustainable developments are less likely to deteriorate over time, preserving the value of both individual properties and the community as a whole. By enforcing standards that ensure that new developments are integrated into the existing community, respecting zoning regulations, setbacks, and the surrounding environment, Section 6.8 helps avoid haphazard, disjointed development. This fosters a sense of community and cohesion in the area. In conclusion, I would like to say that Section 6.8 of the Prescott Hillside Development Standards is essential for ensuring that development is safe, sustainable, and respectful of the unique challenges and beauty of the hillside environment. By enforcing these guidelines, Prescott can protect its natural resources, enhance public safety, maintain its aesthetic charm, and promote long-term growth that benefits both current and future residents. These measures ultimately ensure that the hillsides remain a valuable and livable area for generations to come. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider these points.
Thank you.
Kathy Rusing.
Good morning. I'd like to make a few points. First of all, I need to clarify what version of the LDC we're working on today, because the copy I have is dated November 17th, 2020. Are we working on the one that was passed after this project in August of this year? I'd like to clarify which version we're talking about.
There wasn't an update, to the best of my knowledge, so we're working, in this area.
The November 17th, 2020? Okay. All righty. Thank you. I'm referring to section 6.6 through 6.9.3, drainage slopes and grading, ridge lines, and height. I'm going to say some things that need to be said. Number one, nowhere in the code does it give city staff or the community development director the authority to waive, ignore, or amend the grading, slope, or ridge line sections of the LDC. And I just heard a few minutes ago that we're depending on the community developer's interpretation. Number two, it explicitly only gives the authority to City Council. Why? Number one, for the purpose of transparency and protecting the rights of citizens to have public input on projects in their community. Anything done administratively bypasses public record and the open meeting process. The purpose of these sections are twofold. Number one, to protect our natural beauty, and to promote, number 2, to promote public safety by preventing erosion and stormwater runoff from flooding properties downstream. If followed properly, the LDC will save taxpayer dollars in preventing costly lawsuits over flooding and property damage. And we currently have an issue that's been going on for years in a residential area. And we currently have the mass grading project in Prescott Lakes that is already having problems with stormwater runoff. We had a brief discussion here. It talks about single lots, okay? This is not a single lot project. There was at least one lot where the parking lot is that was zoned separately. It was a completely separate lot, and we had to do the rezoning. This is not a one-lot project, but I would like to see a definition of what single lot means to me. Single lot means, because to me, it means a single lot would be a single-family home. The project in Prescott Lakes is not single lot. And that has a multifamily, it has many lots, has hundreds of individual lots in it. So how can you classify that as a single lot project? So I don't want to get off track, but I'm asking you to uphold our LDC. I was on council when I voted for this project. We never had a discussion about this code and our grading. We never did. It was never brought to our attention, and we had no intention when we voted that we were waiving this land development code. And also when we voted on the Solstice Ridge project, we had no idea that we were voting to waive anything. It was not brought to our attention, and this has got to stop. So I'm just asking you to uphold our LDC and apply the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, you may want to do at this point kind of the rebuttal from both parties, having heard kind of the full arguments and evidence at this point, to see if they want to address anything that was said or
And Mr. Chair,
record.
I'd like to request the Community Development Director speak.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Good morning, Board. Thank you. Chelsea Walton, Community Development Director. Wanted to address a couple of points that came up through the conversation today. But number one, I'd like to start with a thank you. Thank you to Ms. Veronica Grace. Throughout this process, she's been so respectful, and although we disagree on the interpretation, it's never been a disparaging conversation. It's always been very respectful, and I really appreciate the civility in the civic discourse, so thank you very much. Secondly, wanted to clarify a couple of points. Number one, as Alex mentioned in her presentation, this project and all projects throughout the city are still subject to engineering standards. So we have a completely different document, set of codes that's called the General Engineering Standards, and those talk about both building on sloped lots and what engineering is required. It also requires through other sections of code, our I codes, or International Building Code and International Residential Code, have certain requirements relative to the building construction. So there were concerns about drainage, there were concerns about slope stabilization and building integrity. All of those are still covered relative to the I codes for the vertical construction components, and then our general engineering standards that are governed by our Public Works Department have several sections that speak to the slopes and making sure that there is adequate drainage, that there is slope stabilization for new construction. So all of those still apply. I do recognize that that the hillside development section of the Land Development Code mention things such as drainage and even such as the slopes of residential driveways. But all of those engineering elements and building elements are covered by other codes as well. For instance, the fire code. Our fire folks have strong opinions relative to the grade of driveways, so they speak into that as well. The section of code, the hillside development standards in the Land Development Code are more about protecting the sloped areas. And as Alex pointed out, moving density, shifting density away from those sloped areas, clustering development in the flatter areas is the goal. So it's not so much the engineering and the safety as it is moving density out of the sloped areas. So wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that there are protections in place relative to integrity, relative to safety. The other things that I wanted to mention relative to the concern with Prescott Lakes, and thank you, Mayor-elect, for bringing that up. The Prescott Lakes master plan and the areas within that subdivision are under the hillside development standards. The master plan for Prescott Lakes, as it was approved back in 2005, I believe, did mention the sloped areas, and with those approvals, there were slope exhibits that shifted their density and spoke to specific disturbable areas that were approved. So for the Prescott Lakes development, under their under their platting process and under their master plan process, they were subject to the hillside development standards and are building to those specifications with their disturbable area and their sloping. For the 500 South Marina project, it is a part of, I believe the original platted name was the original town site for Prescott. I may have got that wrong, but it was platted, I want to say, era 50s or earlier. It might have been even the 30s, obviously before the hillside development standards came into play. And this particular property, minus the three lots that Mayor-elect had brought up, the larger lot area, it's a single site from what we're viewing. So when Miss Grace brought this question up to myself, obviously I sought legal counsel to determine the best interpretation that we had of the specific section 6.8 relative to applicability. So I offered that interpretation of how to apply the code and how we would really make it work for a single site. And because of all of the density transfers and the applicability and how to make that section of code work for a single site, we weren't getting there. So my determination was that, you know, this is really intended for multi-lot subdivision. The other sections of 6 that Mayor-elect brought up, you know, 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, those still apply. It's just the section 6.8 for the hillside development standards that we're speaking to today. And again, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity. And I recognize that if you have a different perspective pursuant to how this process works, I'm for receiving that feedback. As a city staff person, I'm indifferent to what the decision is. You know, this is my best way of applying the code. But if you see things differently, we're all ears and ready to receive direction. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm here for any other questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. Any questions for Chelsea?
Mr. Chair, Mark Oakness, yes, I have questions. Madam Director, I serve on a county board, and we're in the process of updating all the code for the upcoming IBC.
Bless you.
Which IBC is the city using now?
Sure, we're on the 2018 codes, and we are in the process of transitioning to the 2024 codes.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And then, if you don't have any more questions for her, it'll be appropriate to hear from the appellant again on her rebuttals, if she has anything, having heard the discussion so far, that she wants to add.
Ms. Grace, did you have a comment you want to make, or a rebuttal?
Thank you. Just one point of clarity based on Ms. Walton's comment. What our land development code does contain is the maximum allowable disturbable land in hillsides based on a slope map that is determined by our engineering team and is publicly available upon request, which I did, and I think I included that with my application, so I'm hoping you have copies of that. It shows that the slope, for example, of 500 South Marina Street, at one edge of the property, it varies significantly, but I would say on average, it's between 30 degrees and 40 degrees. And according to our land development code of section 6.8, that would make it very difficult to actually disturb very much of that land. And so as we look further outside of that property, if we look around the city of Prescott, applying section 6.8 broadly to all land development, as it states in our code, would mean that a lot of our hillsides cannot be disturbed very much based on the slope. That is what is in our land development code. It is not in our engineering standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, at this point, you can kind of debate and see where you kind of come at it. I think, ultimately this is a statutory interpretation. I think that both parties laid that out. So you're looking kind of at the conflict between that broad statement in 6.1 and that more narrowing statement in 6.82, which is the actual hillside development standard. So you've got the one section that says it's applicable to all site development. That's the appellant's argument. And the city's argument from the director is that she's relying on the except as otherwise specified herein. And you are the finders of fact and concluders of law on this one as a quasi-judicial body. So you're going to have to make that determination. But the final sentence of 6.8.2 says, where the standards of this section are in conflict with other provisions of the code, the more restrictive apply. So you're going to have to kind of weigh, the ideas and figure out which way, it tips the balance on your determination. And the other thing is, there was a statement, I think, by the mayor-elect that there's no authority for the community development director to make interpretations of the land development code, but that's clearly within the purview of the land development code. So just wanted to say that. So now you get to kind of have the discussion and make a determination whether you want to affirm the decision, reverse it, or reverse it with direction and modifications to her interpretation.
Thank you. Mary?
And I'm sorry to repeat what I've already said, jumping the gun earlier. And I'm sorry, before we get to our debate on the board or amongst the board here, Mayor-elect, did you have something more you wanted to add?
Yes, I'd just like to add the Section 6 refers to Section 9.1.1, conformity with land development code, and let me read. Every official and employee of the City of Prescott vested with the duty or authority to issue a permit or license shall not issue a permit or license for any use, building, or purpose that conflicts with any provision of this code. Any permit, license, or certificate issued in conflict with the provisions of this code may be voided at the option of the city. And I have several pages in the code where it specifically says, for example, the city council has full discretion in which to waive or modify hillside development standards to all proposed residential land splits and subdivisions with slope areas greater than 20%. It says under exceptions, 6.8.5, may be modified and approved by the city council, okay? Here's another one under 6.9.2. The standards of this section shall apply to all development. No staff administered adjustments to height shall be permitted to these ridgeline standards. So it's consistently throughout this section that the authority is given to city council and not to the community development department or their staff. And unfortunately, the city council, when they were approving these projects, this was never part of our conversation, and nor was it part of the conversation with planning and zoning. So I just wanted to add a few things. Thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And not to repeat what I've already said, but I'll repeat it anyway, which is in this matter of statutory interpretation or code interpretation, actually, whether or not Prescott Lakes is good or bad or otherwise, whether or not this project as a whole is good or bad or otherwise, is not really what we're here to speak about or make a decision about. It's more whether or not the community development director's decision on whether or not this section of code 6.8 applies to this project in particular. And in looking at that code interpretation, I look to the intent which is set out in 6.8.1, which is the purpose of this section, which is to protect the natural assets that could be impacted by a development, as well as 6.8.2 applicability, and that specifically speaks to the fact that this section applies unless specifically accepted. And reading through 6.8, I just do not see any specific exception that would apply to this particular development. And in particular, I'm looking at, flipping pages, looking at section E, provides a table, and then F, where it talks about table interpretation. F1 speaks of non-pad preliminary plat design, and in the sub-paragraphs A and B specifically talk about a proposed lot. So to me, that indicates that this code section comes all the way down to a lot as being the target or the type of development that this code section should apply to, not any specific number of lots or any size of a development, but all the way down to a proposed lot. Whether or not the Marina Street development piece is one lot or a couple little sections that clustered together to allow the developer to build the apartments that they're considering there, which frankly, I'm all for the apartments going up on the south end of Marina Street, as long as the development applies the code sections. And I don't see any reason to throw out 6.8 for this project. And again, I will just point to the very last section of 6.8, which is 6.8.5, exceptions to hillside development standards. That was the opportunity for whoever wrote this code to say, okay, not a small development, not a single lot, not a single family home, not a small apartment complex, any other way they wanted to put in an exception to this 6.8, it's not there. And because this code section 6.8 applies except where specifically accepted, there's no specific exception that would say this code section should not apply to this development site.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mary Frederickson, I'll move, given what I just said, to, I'm not sure if deny is the right word, but I will move to deny the Community Development Director's interpretation of LDC Section 6.8.
Do we have a second?
Do I stand alone here? It
I'll
appears-
second the motion.
And just a refresher that it's going to require 4 votes to pass.
Those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay. Nay.
The motion does not pass. Thank you.
If you want to attempt an alternate motion to affirm, it's up to you guys, but as it stands right now, the motion to deny or reverse has failed. Any thoughts, Chelsea?
Can you put up the first slide where it gives them the broad spectrum of how they... Well, this is the first hearing of this nature that we've had, at least in my tenure. And IT, would you bring the PowerPoint back up for us? So I'm not really sure what to do in a stalemate situation.
Yeah, they can attempt to do an affirmative. It's going to come down 3-2 again. So
Right.
I guess we're done.
Well,
We have a
unless there is, can you go to the next? Oh, thank you. So the options are the middle bullet there. After hearing, you can reverse, affirm wholly or partly, or modify the appeal or modify the appealed interpretation. So you all have received the packet. You've read through that section of code. I would maybe ask, since it's still a little early, maybe have further discussion if there is a middle ground between the two opinions. If you want to discuss maybe why you disagree, maybe spend a little time on that, just in the effort of coming to a conclusion for this matter. And we're all here to engage in the conversation.
Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate that. And I would like to hear, in the spirit of debate, I guess, to hear from the board members who did not vote aye to my motion, the basis for finding that 6.8 does not apply to the project.
I'll go. This is Mark Hoeknes, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mark.
A couple of things. One, the process of permitting and putting the property together provides protections for a lot of the things that were discussed and described. And that's a good process and it's in place. And they need to stay within the zoning for the property. And then when they do have plans for building, those will all have to be to code and permitted. And I believe you require engineering for drainage, correct? So a certified engineer has to weigh in and provide that that's done properly. Furthermore, well, I agree there's some questions as to how the code should be interpreted. I respect the professionalism of the staff, having much more experience than I have, and the legal guidance that they've received as part of my decision.
Thank you. Miriam, did you have something?
Well, after reviewing, I'm kind of back and forth on this. I read it multiple times to make sure I understood where staff stood and where the applicant stood. It was confusing at times because 9.17 goes through and it's inclusive, and then 6.8 is specific. So I was back and forth, and I just do feel that there needs to be more clarity in the very specifics of this. So that was why I was against it.
Rick Emery here. I'll have to go off of the basis of being in the development sector myself. I'm a licensed architect. And going off of what the codes will design with the engineering, that's down the road. That safety comes first. And just from what's been written as far as the subdivisions and applying to single lots, I just have to keep my direction going that way.
I'm very happy that this development, and frankly all developments have to apply the various sections of code to the development. I just don't see any reason to accept this development from the requirements of 6.8. The fact that similar or overlapping elements will be described in other code sections, that's great. They should apply. 6.8, in my view, should also apply. But maybe a thought from our attorney as far as the process goes, if we don't come to a decision one way or the other by a 4 vote, where do things stand?
It's a really good question.
Sorry.
Well, did you want to say something before I chime in?
I do, please, thank you. I just maybe, for dialogue purposes, wonder if the direction some of you are wanting to take is to apply, how would we go about that? And looking for some direction and specifics of what would apply, and on a single site development, how would we do that?
Well, I'll just speak for myself. Way beyond the scope of what we're here to think about as far as the Board of Adjustment goes, how you guys would want to apply 6.8 to this particular project is not in my brain. The thought that we were tasked with today was just whether or not it should apply. How it applies, I will leave to people with more information than I have right now anyway.
And if I may, I think that's largely why we landed where we did, is when you do start to look at single site development and you're looking at 6.8, it's really hard to apply. There's a lot of elements that just aren't applicable. When you're talking about clustering development and shifting it, that's not typically part of a single site development. It's, a planned area development, you're moving density. You can't do that on single site. It takes a PAD. It does take council approval. It takes more of a process. So I'll just say how we kind of landed there. So if we want to apply it, I do think, in terms of the interpretation, it would be reversing that. We would need some direction on how to do that. And maybe it's a good conversation, but.
And
I mean, you may want to see if, one, this is a board of 7. We're down 2. You want to continue it so you have a full board. It may make your lives a little bit easier on the determination. The other option is maybe with your zealous advocacy and debate, you may have convinced one of the no's to vote yes or one of the yeses to vote no's. If you want to try the alternate motion to affirm and see if that gets you anywhere, more votes.
And Mr. Chair, I was just about to go down that route, and thank you for that. Appreciate it. I would like to make a motion that, where's the number here? I'll just do it generally. I make a motion to approve or uphold APL 25-001. And I would like there to be a note in the public record that the Board of Adjustment would like the City Council to discuss that at a future meeting for any possible changes that they desire.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Miriam Hobbrick seconds.
Okay, any other further comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
The vote carries 4-1.
And I'm sorry, before we close out, just to clarify, so the motion was to affirm the community developer decision.
Yes. Thank you very much. Do we have any staff updates or anything?
I'm not here for updates. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Hoeknes, with regards to the desire for council to review this for code changes. Was it the intent to have staff bring it forward to council and kind of outline this dialogue?
Yeah, I don't know how things get put on the City Council's agenda, but I would like a memo from Community Development to describe that we would like some clarity for the code. They can leave it as is, but if they so choose, they could modify it. I'd just like to bring it to their attention.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll work on a memo for council.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you an update. I've already met with our city clerk as part of my onboarding and transitioning to the mayor. And we're going to put this item reviewing this section of the land development code concerning our grading, slopes, preservation of our natural beauty. We're going to put it on, have a study session, clean up the language, make it so that we don't have loopholes and debates like this, and to bring it to a vote. So I just want to let you know, thank you very much. And it is in the works. And I know you were in a very tough position, but it was because this code was not very clear, and we need to make it so that it's functional and is applied when it needs to be applied instead of being overlooked. Thank you.
Mayor-elect, just a question about that, considering this issue, for the benefit of the appellant here, do you know if the discussion is being considered retroactively, that is back to this decision, or just prospectively going forward?
It was,
And I think at this point,
Yeah.
we're off topic.
yeah, no, well,
So sorry.
Way off topic.
no, it was already, this has been in the works for a long time. Thank you.
Any other staff updates?
No, there's no other staff updates. We don't have any application in currently for a meeting next month. If we get something in the next few days, we'll keep you posted, but nothing for next month as of today.
Thank you very much. And if there's nothing else, meeting adjourned.